everyone. So this is Alex, and I'm back for another episode of Talking Futures. And today we are joined by Kimberly Powell. Hi, Kimberly.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Getting by.
Good. Yes. So you are currently the vocal coach at BCA, but you also have past experience on the West End and performing overseas. Do you mind just talking to BCA students a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So, like you say, I'm at BCA at the moment, the vocal coach, and that kind of all came about actually because of COVID, because I was doing a show just before that, and then obviously musical theatre was just stopped completely on that day. And we've been here ever since, and it's been great. But no, it all started, I think I grew up loving theatre. My family really loved the theatre. We'd go into London, it would always be like a special treat. My sister as well. So I think it was kind of a bit of a family thing, but always loved dressing up and storytelling and performing and having that thing. So I think my parents just sent me to a local dancing school to try and focus my energy in a way. And we would do a little bit of singing and drama and dance. And at that dancing school, they had an agent who would send you for auditions. And just for anybody that doesn't know, an agent is somebody who kind of almost not takes control of your career, but is the one that finds the auditions for you so that you don't have to stand in a long line every single time. And because there are still, that's called an open audition, so you can have an open call and you can still get yourself seen, but it's like a full day's process. But with a private audition, when you have an agent, they will say you're in at 10:15 and you do your 2 songs and it's all done and dusted, and then you can get a recall or another one, and then it's finals and you either get the job or you don't. So I had this agent, and yeah, I was just probably this massive show off of a child loving my life, just being like, yeah, cool, I can do auditions. And I did this job in the West End. It was called Showboat, which so it's a bit like an old school musical. And the Broadway cast came over. So everyone that had done the show on Broadway, it was directed by Harold Prince, came over apart from the children. So they needed children that they could get, just local kids. For being in town, and it was just a really amazing experience and something that I just didn't think was possible, just to earn money for doing shows. I still think now is crazy. Yeah, so I went and did that, and I really do think that was kind of the catalyst for starting this whole thing and thinking of it properly as a career. And then after that, taking it seriously and going into proper training. And then I went for my school, from year 9 and above, I went to a vocational school. So we would do academic in the morning and then like singing, drama, tap or whatever in the afternoon. So these were really full days. And I did my GCSEs at that school. And then from 16 and above, I went to train in musical theatre and dance for 3 years. And that was pretty like rigorous training that there's so many things to tick off and learn, but then that's it. And then you're released into the wild, into the big wide world. But it was great. And I think I felt having had that experience as a child can kind of help set you up in so many ways. But again, it all just stemmed from me and my sister putting on shows in the lounge. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't, you don't really know when you're young, you're just kind of having a bit of fun and seeing what happens. And then once you realize the potential for what there is, then we started to kind of take it seriously and think, oh, I know I want to audition for this college and try and get that kind of experience behind me, etc. But that's pretty much how it started.
Yeah, and then you were performing on the West End and overseas. Like, what sort of shows were you doing whilst you were doing them?
So I did. Well, the first job I did actually was as after graduating was Greece, and I played Sandy, and it was like a small production, but it was a tour, and that was just, I don't know, the first time I was 19, and I just was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then shortly after that, I did Mamma Mia, and Mamma Mia was a big one. It was a really big scale production. It was exactly the same as the show that's in London, and it was the international tour. So we were going to these like incredible venues. And again, I think I just was like having my eyes widened, and we would go to like these arenas in Germany that they're normally like where ice hockey would get played. So you've got like, 20,000 people and you think it's only Mamma Mia. But there's such a following for it. But then, yeah, I did Singing in the Rain, and there's a few shows that are not quite so well known, but this one I did called Mrs. Henderson Presents, which was out in Toronto. And it was just a really beautiful show, and it's set during the Blitz, and there's all this kind of wartime things going on. And again, it's just really having the opportunity to, of course, play these great roles, but also have the adventure aside from the show itself that I think is always really good fun, and kind of grabbing that and going with that, and thinking, you know, when I was growing up, I was like, okay, West End only, I just want to work in London. That is, the prestige of that seems so big. And then the older I got, the more I thought, you know, the traveling side of this and the opportunity that there is. I mean, I don't know about, you know, with Brexit now, it's probably slightly different, but I think at first, I just, having got that first one, production of Greece, I then was like, oh, I just want to take advantage of the traveling opportunities that can come with this too. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity out there. It's just a very oversaturated business, like everywhere. But I think there's a lot of that, you know, there's a lot of people that are wanting to do it, because, don't get me wrong, because when you're working, it's absolutely brilliant. It's just when you're not, that's when the trouble starts.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess it's quite a ruthless business in terms of, you know, sometimes you get the audition, which is fantastic, and then sometimes you don't, because like you say, it's so oversaturated. Do you think are there any particular like hurdles that you had to personally overcome, or any like highs and lows?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There's tons. I think, well, again, graduating, you know, I've always had all that structure, you know, growing up, you go to school, you go to college, you know exactly where you stand. And then suddenly graduating and being self-employed, which nobody really teaches you about, and having to learn how to do your tax and pay your bills and live an adult life, was actually really difficult to learn to adjust. And then going on tour is great, because you don't really have many expenses, and the company will often put you in hotels or in digs, and they'll sort it out for you. But it's the periods being out of work that you really have to learn how to live and adjust and find yourself another income. And again, it's not dog eat dog, but it is ruthless. There's been times where I had an agent really early on that I was dropped by, which at the time was horrendous. But actually then, you know, I got with the one who I'm with now, who I really love, and that relationship is so fundamental to your career, and you don't really think about it at the time. You're just like, oh, I'm just grateful for anybody, but actually they work for you as much as you work for them. So it's kind of finding those people and trying to carve out the career that you want as much as possible. But no, in terms of highs, there's, I mean, like I say, it's been the travel. There's moments that press nights that you think, oh, there's so much adrenaline, there's so many people here, they've thrown so much money at this event, you're like, ah, great. Or even just small things like, so I've been a cover quite a lot, which means you're an understudy. So they have the leads, so the principals, and then you have the ensemble, who is essentially the chorus, and then you have swings. And a swing is somebody who understudies the ensemble when the ensemble goes on for the lead. So it sounds a bit complicated, but in the grand scheme of things, it all makes sense. And so I am often in the ensemble understudying one of the leads. And the first time I ever went on for Sophie in Mamma Mia, when I was a bit younger, I hadn't rehearsed. So they open the show and then they do the understudy rehearsals. And I'd not had a rehearsal. And obviously I knew the track, which is where she goes and what she does. So I knew all the script and I knew all the songs, but I'd never really done it or run it through with the rest of the cast. And so I remember getting the phone call that morning from the company manager. And they were like, okay, you're on tonight. The girl's sick. And so they brought me in early and they kind of ran through all the costume changes and things like this. And it was just a massive whirlwind. And I remember at the 5-minute call, the wig mistress came in and was kind of like doing my hair. I just looked in the mirror and I was like, oh my God, I have no idea what's about to happen. You know, it's like you trust yourself and you know, and you've had all that training, but you're like, I'm about to go out and do a show with all these people watching. And I went out there and I did it and I had the best time, and the cast was so supportive and everyone kind of guides you through it. But I remember coming off after that and ringing my mum, because it was on tour, so she couldn't come up and see it. And being like, oh my God, I've just done this show in this role. And it's a thing, you know, I'd always wanted to do it, and that role in particular. So there are moments like that you think, oh, wow, that, you know, what a great, not even achievement, but I just have so much adrenaline. I just felt great. And then there are moments where you think, I'm never going to work again. I don't know how I'm going to get out of this rut. I don't know how you know, I've been out of work. There was a period there, I was out of work for about 9 months, and you're still auditioning in this time. And there are some times when there's no auditions. I mean, this period right now is tricky because there's nothing. I don't do film and TV, I only do theatre. So that doesn't exist at the moment, not really. So there are definitely hard times. And I think it's just keeping on top of your mental health as well, and knowing that you can still go out there and live. A lot of people that work in theatre, they often say that they're only happy when they're working, or life is only going on when they're working. And then if you do that, if you a friend of mine was out of work for about 6 years and still grafting and doing things, and then eventually now she's a casting agent, which is great. So she's still within the field, she still loves it, and she's really good at it. She just never really got a break. And that story happens a lot. That's constant in theatre, but it's worth it when you get there, if you know what I mean. It's a really hard business, and I know I say this all the time, and everybody says, well, all industries are, but I do think there is something about trying to break in and meet all the people, all the networking, the casting directors and the agents, and knowing all that stuff, that you just have to kind of take in your stride and just wait and see what happens, and just keep working hard, I suppose.
I mean, that sounds like super stressful, and that there must be, like you say, these different highs and lows. There must be different skills that you have to rely on, not just your talent, but do you think there's any particular skills that you would maybe, I mean, if you're going back to like your 18-year-old self who was maybe trying to get like their first audition after graduating, and for our BCA students who are maybe just graduating and are trying to break into the industry as well, what skills do you think are important to keep in mind when you're starting your career?
Well, so I think you have to it's that whole thing, know that it's going to be hard. If you go in thinking, okay, this isn't going to all just come to me, then you can kind of be a bit more prepared. I think as well, you want to brush up on all of your disciplines. So what happens a lot of colleges, people discipline you, pigeonhole yourself. So other people pigeonhole you. They say, oh, you're a dancer, you're a comedy actress, and so don't let anybody do that to you, and don't do that to yourself, because I certainly did that. And I think I actually wasted time. I wasted a few years just by being like, well, I'm going to stand at the back of this dance call because I'm not really a dancer, which was ridiculous, because I just had 3 years intense training doing point work every day. But you think, oh, well, what compared to, and so there's a lot of that stuff. But actual skills in terms of, other than going to class still, keep having singing lessons, keep going to dance, if you play an instrument, that will really work in your favor. And I know not everybody does, but I don't. But there's so many actor muso shows that are going on at the moment that having a little extra something can really help. If you speak another language, all of those actual skills you can put on your CV, and they really work in your favor. Even these kind of immersive things, if there are other things that you can do to help add to your CV, or just to who you are as a person, I think is really great. But ultimately, I would just say, know that it's hard, have some self-worth, and try and stay on top of it in that sense. But I think, it is a tricky business, but it's so worth it when you know that you're still working. That was what I was going to say. One more thing. Try and keep realistic. I think when you're 18, I remember they said this when we graduated, when you want to know around you who is as good as you and who you are better than, and how you can improve yourself. And they used this Chicago analogy, and they said, if you have 2 auditions on the same day, which it does happen, not that often, but it can happen. And they said, if you had to audition for Chicago for the role of Velma Kelly, and at the same time they said you could audition for a high-end cruise ship, and you're 18 years old, use your brain and be realistic. Which one am I going to get? Which one of those jobs, because you want to work, which one of those jobs do you think you can get realistically? And it's not to say, well, no, you're not going to get Velma Kelly, but they're looking for someone who's 35 and who's been doing 15 years of work. So I think there's elements of that as well, of just trying to think, okay, I want to start here, I need to build up my experience, and in terms of skills, say yes to things. Just go and have that experience, and go and do them, and do a little bit where you are doing a fringe production. So it might not be in the West End, you're just on the outskirts, but people are still going to see those shows, and they will know who you are, and you just try and stand out. And there's so much. I mean, now I'm saying it sounds like there's so much, but actually it is a lot of fun. I think you just got to keep your wits about you and crack on.
Yeah, definitely, especially nowadays as well.
Yeah, so exactly.
And the final question, what I ask everyone is, so you just mentioned a few fantastic skills and everything, which you think would be really key for students. But is there like your biggest tip for students who are maybe trying to break out? into the industry?
I mean, I have just said it, but if you know that it's hard, then that'll put you there. And also a big thing with art across the board is you're not judged necessarily on your talent. So, oh, sorry, my internet might have just gone. So, classic Zoom. Oh, I'm back. There we go. Sorry, disappeared. There you go. Classic Zoom.
That's all right. I can edit this.
Yeah. Okay, great. No, the oh God, what did you say? What I was on to a certain track there with
just knowing that it's not always going to be an easy ride.
Yeah, I know. God, I've said that about 30 times. That sounds terrible, doesn't it? No, oh God, I think I wrote it down somewhere, but now I can't remember. No. Oh, that's, yeah. So it's the fact that, again, yes. So with art, it's so subjective that you can be the best person in the room and not get a recall. And that can happen quite a lot, that it's so often about luck, the right place, the right time, the right agent, the right casting director who knew you. It doesn't have to be because you're not the best. And that can be a really tricky thing to get your head around sometimes, that you think, but I'm perfect for that role, but they might not see it that way. And it isn't about talent. So, and again, most people know that, but there's so many things where it's just about, they knew that person from that job, and they sometimes it's they fit the costume. It's as simple as that. But I do think in terms of one tip, I would say is keep going, because you'll get there. There's no shame in dropping out and going to try and choose another avenue. No shame whatsoever. I think that's right. And particularly the older that we get, like I was saying, a few friends have been like, actually, this is giving me way more joy. And it starts to ruin the industry for them otherwise. And you become bitter and you just think, I don't like this anymore. I can't even go to the theatre without feeling so tense. But I think if you have carried on with your training and you're still going and you've still got your agent, just keep pushing, and you have to believe in yourself, because there'll be times when nobody else will. And you think, oh God, am I crazy? But then you'll get a recall, and then something happens and you think, oh, actually, even the most successful people, Imelda Staunton, she talks about her career and she says her 20s were bad, her 30s were really, really bad, her 40s were a bit better, her 50s were great, and now her 60s, she's got a Tony and Olivia. So you can't, and I don't want to say never give up, but if it's something that you think, okay, with theatre, I know this is what I want, this is what I'm really shooting for, I'm just going to go for it, then you just stick with it and keep going and keep doing everything you can to keep yourself motivated. And it's an absolute ride.
No, definitely. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today, Kimberly, and for all your amazing advice, especially for performing arts students. I'm sure they'll find everything you've said super, super helpful. So thank you for taking time to do this today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. Sorry that I was just rabbiting on a bit there.
Not at all. Not at all. Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.